Jeremy here with you until 2, and then it's Scott, and then Sarah and Michelle Visage and DJ Spoonie and much more. Meanwhile, have you lost your local bus route? Just to bring us right back down to earth. More than 1 in 4 services in England has been cut in the last decade. Maybe yours is among them. To give you an example, it's happened to one town in Buckinghamshire. We're going to look closely at this particular example. The number 41 used to be an hourly service between Oney, which is spelled Olney, and Bedford, which is 12 miles away. Now only 2 buses run each day, one to Bedford in the morning, one back in the evening. It still operates an hourly service, but that only goes from Bedford to Turvey, which is 4 miles away from Oney. Now, that has left students and commuters in Oney marooned and businesses in the town feeling increasingly isolated. One of the victims is 18-year-old Charlie Smeralia, who's studying for a BTEC in engineering in Bedford, but is left waiting in the cold and dark for the second and final bus of the day to take her back home to Oney. Bus routes have been cut elsewhere in the country, including on the Isle of Sheppey in Kent, in Liverpool, in Moulton, North Yorkshire, Colville in Leicestershire, Cambridgeshire. I could go on. So are you in a place that has become a bus desert? Do tell us. Maybe your local route has been axed and you've been left cut off from nearby towns. Ken was saying earlier, places where they run one bus to somewhere, but they don't run a bus back on the same day. Maybe you've had no choice but to drive your child to college because their bus route closed. Email vine@bbc.co.uk. Please include your phone number when you do. Text us 88291, or you can send us a WhatsApp message on the long number 08000 288 291. Let's talk first to Debbie Whitworth, who's Oney Town Council's Deputy Mayor. I'm guessing you're not impressed, Debbie.
Not at all. Thank you so much for airing this for us today. Our residents are struggling with the drastic cuts from Stagecoach, which took place when they announced their new revised timetables in October. And since then, the impacts have been huge by a wide range of people: parents, students, workers, those who rely on the buses for shopping, socialising, getting them to and from appointments at both Bedford and Northampton hospitals, social time away. Local traders has had significant reduction in their footfall due to these bus cuts. Our market traders, we have a lovely Thursday market that's been going years here. They've lost their regular customers that, they all know each other for years. It's just deeply concerning because we all know if you don't use it, you're going to lose it, basically. Well,
exactly. And this is about what was an hourly service. Is that right? And it's now just 2 buses a day.
That's right. We've got the one in the morning, which is picking the students up, but they're not all getting on. It's hit and miss as to whether it actually turns up. It's taken them to Northampton and Bedford, and there's nothing throughout the day. They're picking them up sort of late in the evening at 20 to 7.
Wow, so they've got to extend their day at Bedford or wherever.
They are now stranded there. It brings them to Turvey, that's the border where it's will stop there, but then that's put an impact hugely on the parents, majority of which are working, to rally round and leave work early and what have you to go and pick them up.
Of course.
And it's like, over the last 13 years, local authority budgets have been slashed by central government, which has led to the loss of services like the local buses.
Understood. But there is a statement from Stagecoach East. I don't know if you're going to be impressed with this, but Darren Rowe, the managing director, says, we implemented a new frequency for the 41 service of every 90 minutes. We made this change based on our analysis of data, which showed a significant drop in passenger numbers since the pandemic. They say we're listening to customer feedback, but the previous frequency is not sustainable given the current passenger flow.
Well, I mean, that email has gone out to myself and lots of the residents as well. And no, we're not impressed with it because the demand is huge. I don't know when they did their surveys, but it certainly hasn't been, in recent times.
But
since we're out of COVID.
He says they've gone to every 90 minutes, but you say it's twice a day. That's what I don't get.
No, I think that was how what that was previously. It's not every 90 minutes. No, we've had cuts. There's literally one in the morning and one in the evening. And if you call on the website, if you call the timetable up, it's there in black and white. You can see just a gap throughout the day.
So, do you protest or do you just grin and bear it?
Well, I mean, we had a little campaign yesterday on our marketplace in Oney. Residents came, and also those from connecting rural villages like Lavendon, Denton, and Yardley, which they've just lost the connection. That they can't get in. They can't get into Oney. But we had a little protest. We had some pamphlets, leaflets, banners done, just highlighting the issues, really. Yeah, I could really. There's so many tales of woe that I could tell you.
Yeah.
There's one lady that's actually lost her job. Sadly, she worked for the NHS for 18 years. She was heavily relied on the buses to take her in. She's had to stop work. We've got people that have taken a reduction in their hourly jobs, and which has impacted them on their, the earnings they're bringing in. They've had just, gone part-time. We've got residents in Olney that work in Bedford that commute. One gentleman has to stay with his elderly father in Bedford because he can't get a bus back.
Right.
It's far-ranging, yeah.
Thank you very much, Debbie Whitworth, who's Oney Town Council's Deputy Mayor. Listening to that is Graham Vidler, who is Chief Executive of the Confederation of Passenger Transport. I'm not suggesting you support this, but maybe you can help us with the rationale, Graham.
Of course I can, Jeremy, and it's really, really hard to hear about the experience of Debbie and people in Oney. And unfortunately, it's something that's happening across the country at the moment. And what lies behind it is two things, really. Firstly, costs in the bus industry are up, as they are everywhere, about 25% over the last couple of years. That's the amount we pay our staff, it's the amount we have to spend on fuel, and it's the amount we have to pay for parts to keep our vehicles moving safely. At the same time, passenger numbers are down. It's not so much people who are paying fares, actually, as the free pass holders who aren't travelling as much as they used to, a third less than they did before the pandemic. And that has a knock-on impact on the amount of funding that we get through from councils.
Right, so those are older passengers who would travel free from their point of view, but you pick up a subsidy when you do a head count. Is that right?
Yeah, effectively, the government pays through councils to operators to carry those passengers who might otherwise have paid a fare.
Okay.
And those two impacts together, Jeremy, mean that in many places across the country, we've had to take some really tough decisions in partnership with local authorities about services that we are going to have to reduce or remove because they are indefinitely loss-making.
Shouldn't the buses be like the postal service? If there's only one person left on the Isle of Skye, the Royal Mail will still deliver their letters.
Yes,
and you've got to be, in a way, if you're running a public service like buses, you've got to be prepared that there are going to be buses travelling around with one person on the top deck, and that's it.
And councils have the ability to pay for additional bus services to be brought in, or for extensions to routes to be brought in, or for Sunday services to be added onto a particular route. But as Debbie was saying so articulately, council budgets have been under huge pressure, and councils are having to prioritise things that they must spend on, like social care, for example, where they've got a legal responsibility. So, as I think you're suggesting, Jeremy, one solution might be for there to be an obligation to provide bus services to certain parts of the country, and that would mean that funding had to be devoted to providing those services in a way which, unfortunately, it isn't at the moment.
Thank you very much, indeed, Graham. All the best. Graham Vidler, Chief Executive of the Confederation of Passenger Transport.
I'll bring a coffee.